How's a mom to keep organized? We'll find out from the person who wrote the book on it today on Keeping You Organized. Well, joining us now is Debbie Lillard from spacetospare.com. And Debbie, you are coming to us from Philadelphia?
That's right, just outside the city.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you on the show today. And I want to start with kind of a little bit about your background and kind of how you got in professional organizing. I mean, did you start kind of into that, or were you doing something else and then got kind of moved into this? What's the history behind your experience in professional organizing?
Well, at the time when I started my professional organizing business, I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. And I was basically looking for a way to get out of the house and do something to earn a little bit of money. So I had various different part-time jobs. One of them was being a virtual marketing assistant for a good friend of mine. She had a marketing business down in Virginia, and I did some work with her planning trade shows. And she called me one day and said she was going through a lot of life transitions, and she said, "Debbie, you've got to come down here and organize my life. You're the only person I know that can do this." She was going through a divorce. She was moving into an apartment, and then, of course, starting up her own marketing business.
Oh, boy.
So I thought, all right, this is a good friend of mine, and I like a challenge. So I went down and spent the day and just, top to bottom, got her whole house organized, talked about how she was going to work her business. And at the end of the day, she said, you could really do this as a profession, And I knew of Julie Morgenstern, of course, from seeing her on Oprah Winfrey. And so I started to investigate the profession, and for the cost of having business cards printed up and a few flyers, I started my business.
And how did you get your first few clients when you decide, okay, I got my cards and stuff? Did you just start passing them out, or how did you?
Yeah, I was real active in a local moms club, and I saw that my friends were asking advice like, how do you keep your house so neat? How do you keep your kids on a schedule? How do you do this? And so they were logically my first clients. So like anybody who starts a business, you tap into your friends and family first.
Right.
So I just spread the word and told everybody what I was doing and said, do you know of anybody that needs help in their home or their office? And it just sort of blossomed from there. And then with my own mom's club, I had done some presentations, just little talks for maybe half an hour, telling them different tricks of the trade. And then I went to speak at other moms clubs. So they were really like my first group of clients.
So how long has it been since you've kind of started and to where we are today?
It has been 10 years since I started my business.
Okay. And then, so would you say the way you go about getting customers is different now, or is it more just all referral? Are you doing any advertising? I mean, how do you kind of manage your business now?
Well, it's definitely blossomed since the first couple of years was definitely word of mouth. Obviously, I have a website. I'm a member of NAPO, the National Association of Professional Organizers. So that's a great search tool. Just being a member of a local chapter, anybody that goes looking on the web for a professional organizer can type in their zip code and find me in their area. And then I have 3 books that are published. So, of course, that gets me a lot of publicity, radio and television.
Right.
So I would say it's more electronic word of mouth now than just, the people from my neighborhood.
Right. And now that we're all interconnected, and even shows like this where people, might be listening to this on a podcast, they may be watching some video or whatever, you never know how your name is going to get out there. Do you do distance consulting, like where you're talking with people in other cities, or do you primarily just kind of stay in the Philadelphia area there?
My hands-on organizing business is local to this area, yes. I have done some speaking engagements that are outside of this area, and that is something that I'm considering for the future, doing some what they call virtual organizing.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about your, maybe your sweet spot, or what you do really well with clients, and maybe even how you start the process of meeting someone for the first time and saying, what are the kinds of things you talk to someone who's brand new and has come to you for the first time?
Well, we do an initial assessment over the phone. Again, since I've been in this business so long, I'm not going out and doing hour-long assessments of the house. I kind of know just from talking to them what I'm getting into. And I basically ask them the who, what, where, when, and why. Who have you asked for help before? Who else lives in your home if it's a home that we're organizing, or who else has access to your office if we're talking about an office? So I just go through those lists of questions and do a lot of listening. I can sort of determine what level they're at, if they're a complete hoarder or if they're just someone that's situationally disorganized and needs, help with one or two projects.
Now, speaking of Hoarders, you've been featured on the Hoarders program. What was your involvement there?
That was pretty interesting. Of course, that's a very popular show, and there's several different types of hoarder shows. They came to my hometown of Broomall, and because I'm a member of NAPO, they looked for some local organizers through that search. So there was actually 3 of us that helped the main organizer, Corey Chalmers, who they flew in from Oregon, to help a woman who had a consignment shop and also a house that needed to be decluttered. And I actually knew the client. When they called me and told me the situation, I said, I know exactly who you're talking about. It's a small town, and I was taking items to her consignment shop for my other clients because she would buy anything. And her shop was just overloaded. So I don't normally work with hoarders, but I felt very comfortable because I knew her and I knew the situation. They shot for 2 days over a weekend, and they sent me and another organizer over to the consignment shop and basically said, do what you can.
Did she willingly go along? My mother-in-law was an antique dealer, and I think she liked buying more than selling, so there was always this extra supply around. But how did she react to having someone help her get organized?
Well, she sought out the Hoarder show on her own. So she did some sort of an application online. So she knew she needed the help, and she had admitted to me a couple times when I was in the store. She said, I think I'm a hoarder. I think I need some help. So they always say, the first step is admitting you have a problem.
Right.
So she realized that. And then, of course, when you get into it and you have this team of people and 1-800 got junk trucks outside your house, she did hit a little bit of a panic. Like, what are they getting rid of? I want to be able to see everything. Of course, she started pulling things off the truck. But in the end, I think having a therapist there was a great idea. I mean, that's what they do on every Hoarder show. They have a therapist at hand who kind of walked her through the process and talked her down, and she realized the value after a couple days.
Well, she probably also thought that some of the stuff, I could sell this, right? There's value in it, and, it's like, well, you can't sell everything, right?
The therapist had an interesting comment. She said, a hoarder having a consignment shop is like a drunk owning a bar. It just gives you an excuse to accumulate all this stuff, and her basement was full of things that she could sell at the store someday.
Right. Now, what about do they ever, or have you gone back and followed up with her, X number of months later to see how she's doing? Do you find that with most clients they can stay on track, or is that a challenge?
It's very hard with people who are hoarders because they've got a psychological attachment to things, and there's usually something in their personal history where they've experienced a loss, whether it's a bitter divorce or a loss of a loved one, and they're trying to fill that space with things and stuff. So I would say with the hoarders, you're definitely going to see some backsliding unless they have ongoing help. Now, the show did hire another organizer to stay on with her for a couple months, and I know they made progress. But other than that, I can't really say where she's at now. With my most of my clients, I will say I call them situationally disorganized. Right. So something has happened in their life, things have gotten out of hand, and they realize that they just need to set aside the time to tackle these different projects. And most of them can keep going to some level of organization.
Well, give us an example of maybe a recent client that maybe there was a particularly unique challenge. Of course, everyone thinks that their organizing challenge is unique, right? When they probably fall into a certain number of categories. But what's a story that maybe comes to mind to you of a client that you've worked with recently who maybe was challenged in some way?
Yeah, I have to say, the one part about this business that I love is I work with all types of people. I've worked with professional baseball players, opera singers, inventors. I mean, people that I never would have met in any other line of work. But recently I got a call from a gentleman who lived in the city of Philadelphia with his wife, and they're both blind.
Oh, wow.
And I was a little taken back because I haven't worked with a lot of blind, I haven't worked with any blind people. So I just listened to them, and they really wanted some help, and I started to think about the life of a blind person. How do they even answer their emails or pay their bills or take the right medicine? And so I thought it was going to be a really interesting challenge, and it was. I've worked with them several days, and in fact, I'm going back this month to follow up, do another room in their apartment. But it was really very interesting. I learned so much about what tools are out there for the blind, just things as simply as we organized their pantry, and I said, now how do you know that this is a can of peas and not a can of tomatoes? It feels the same. And he said, we have a little pen reader that reads the barcode and tells it has a voice. And I also had to be very conscious of when I'm organizing someone's home. A lot of times I make piles on the floor, and then we put it all back at the end of the day. But I had to be careful of their safety.
Yes.
And when things were, I had to do a lot of questioning, like, okay, can I put these items on this shelf? Does this feel okay to you? And then, of course, at the end of the day, when we had a certain area organized, I would walk them through and just let them touch everything and say, okay, this is where the pasta is. This is where the canned foods are. So it was just a slower process, but it made me more conscious of what they're dealing with every day.
Well, when they contacted you, what was their initial concern? That, how do they feel organized or disorganized when they can't see anything? I guess out of sight, out of mind, maybe. But how did that all work?
Well, it was kind of funny because what they said to me is sometimes very typical what I get from any client. People that can see, they said, you know what, we ordered a lot of things from QVC. The boxes have arrived and we shoved them in this closet and now we don't know what we have. So I kind of had a laugh at first because I thought, I have people that can see that don't know what they have, because it's shoved in boxes and hiding in a basement or a closet. So that was their initial concern, was we want to know what all these boxes are and, did we over order? And then there were certain things that they couldn't find. Mm-hmm. So I kind of found things in their apartment that had been moved arbitrarily. And, one of my rules is keep like things together. And that's just so much more important for someone who can't see.
Right. Well, we're talking to Deb Miller from spacetospare.com. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Deb's newest book, A Mom's Guide to Organizing. And we'll do that when we come back.
Nearly 1 in every 8 women in the U.S. will be diagnosed with breast cancer during their lifetime. While researchers work tirelessly to find new ways to fight this disease, a cure has not been found. Show your support for the fight against breast cancer with breast cancer awareness organizing products from Smead. A portion of the proceeds from the sales of specially marked pink products will be donated to support breast cancer research. Breast cancer awareness products include pink Super Tab file folders, stadium files, tag-along mini organizers, and pink expanding wallets. Use the breast cancer awareness products from Smead to get organized and support breast cancer research at the same time. Smead, keeping you organized.
We're back now and keeping you organized, and we are with Deb Miller from spacetospare.com out of Philadelphia. And actually, what was your town? Broomall? Is that what you said was the town you live in?
Yes.
A small town, suburb?
Yes, Broomall.
Yes. Okay. Well, now let's talk a little bit about your book, A Mom's Guide to Organizing. That just came out, isn't that last year? Is that correct?
Yes, it came out in December. It's called A Mom's Guide to Home Organization.
Okay, A Mom's Guide to Home Organization. And tell us a little bit about what is the kind of the structure of the book and why you actually wrote it.
Well, I wrote it because, as I said in the beginning of my profession, I was speaking to a lot of moms. I was doing moms club talks and handing out, tips and ideas. So I thought, I keep saying the same thing over and over. I might as well write it all down. And I love to write. So, this was a perfect vehicle for me. And I actually have 2 books. And the third book is a combination of those 2. So the first book was absolutely organized. And that was specifically for moms. I divided into 3 sections because I think organizing breaks down to organizing your time, organizing your stuff, and then organizing your spaces or each room in your house. So I take a walk through, how to plan your month, your week, your day. And then the second book that I wrote, Absolutely Organize Your Family, it's like taking those skills and handing them down to your children. So again, going through the same areas, time management, what to do with all your stuff, how to organize each room of your house. So there's a chapter on organizing your home office or organizing your kitchen. So I think it's kind of a nice reference guide because you might not need the whole thing, but you could skip to one chapter and say, my photographs are out of hand. What do I do with photographs? And that would be one category or one chapter.
Well, let's take maybe a tip. I don't know. Let's talking about maybe teens. I have a couple teenagers, and how do you keep a teenager's time organized when they kind of do their own thing, kind of so to speak?
Yeah, that's a current challenge for me. I've got 3 home for the summer. One's in high school, one's in middle school, one's in grade school. And so when my daughter became a teenager, the first thing I did was I talked to her about let's get a daily planner because she has extracurricular activities. She's got a heavier workload than the younger 2. And so we went to the local Staples, and picked out a planner that worked for her. Because what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So she picked out one that looked nice and had a month at a glance and also had pages for every day. So the month at a glance, I said, you write down where you need to be, whether it's part-time job, practice after school, whatever. And then on your daily list, you write what you need to do. So I'm trying to, get her to take control of her own schedule. When she needs to change an appointment, I let her make the phone call and change it in her book.
Didn't she want to have the electronic organizer, or like the iPhone app or something like that? Or she just went with a good old, and we like paper products, by the way, here at Smead. So
yeah. No, and I have to say, people are always trying to convert me to technology. And, there's people learn different ways. And, I'm sure you've heard there's people who are tactile, people who are visual. And I'm definitely one of those people. So I still use a paper planner. And she does have, of course, electronics for all her communication devices. And but she liked the idea of the paper, too. Right. I was trying to ask her questions and find out what worked for her. Because I think, time is an odd concept. It's not tangible, and especially for kids, they need to see it. And I've heard some educational consultants say this too, like most kids should have one of those big desk calendars on their desk so they can get a concept of, okay, my project's due in 3 weeks. What does that look like on a full month calendar? And then once you fill in all your extracurricular activities, you see you might only have 5 days to work on that project that are open. Right. So it's a visual concept. So I do think the paper is good, especially for kids.
Well, how about practicing what you preach? What are maybe your top 2 or 3 either time management or organization things that you use on a daily basis? Just, whether it be time management or just the way you organize things, do you find yourself gravitating to a couple key things that you like to do?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in routines, and I feel like I'm still nagging my kids to develop morning routines. And it's not the best topic during the summer months, but for myself and for them, my general thing is straighten your house daily, clean weekly, and clean out seasonally. So that's sort of a big time management routine to get on. I always start my week. I look at my week ahead and I plan out what's going to happen for those days. And every morning I start and look at my list on my planner. And then middle of the day, I kind of reassess and say, is there something that's no way going to get done today? Then I move it to the next possible day I can get it done. Right. I love checking things off. You feel productive when you check things off. And I'm trying to get my kids to, adapt to that. So just having a list, doing a daily routine. When the kids were real small, I remember saying, let's just straighten our bedrooms in the morning. Then we go downstairs for the rest of the day and straighten up the main living room before we go to bed. One of the tools that I've been using for years is it's called a step basket. And I love those because, people accumulate stuff on the steps anyway. They're going to pile things up. Like, I'll take that up next time I go. Yes. But it can be a health hazard. People could trip down the steps. And also, it just looks a lot neater if it's all in one basket. So,
well, how do you get it back down to the steps, though? Once they take it up, is there a routine, or are you supposed to bring it back right away, right?
Right. Well, you take it up at night, you get everything to the right room, and then if you're straightening up the bedrooms in the morning, anything that, migrated up there that shouldn't have, you can bring it back down, or you just leave it on the steps. Right. It's also a great thing to do when company's coming over unexpectedly. You can do like a fast tidy up and just throw stuff in the basket. You don't even have to take it to the right room at that point. Right. So that's just a little tip.
You talked a little bit about, still wanting to be in the paper world, which we like. What are your thoughts on just some of the new trends, especially electronic or paper? I mean, or are there any new trends really in organizing? I mean, have you seen anything that you've said, hey, you know what, I didn't see this a couple years ago, but now I'm doing this, whether it's electronic or paper or whatever?
New trends. Well, I go to the NAPO convention. There's always some new app or gadget for, and like I said, people keep trying to convert me. I will say that I like the Google Calendar, especially for families, because I can color code it for each of my kids. I have an iPhone, so I do keep my calendar on my iPhone. I think that's real practical for me, going to clients' houses, and they'll say, okay, when can you come back? And I've got it right there on my phone. And so it does sort of consolidate all our family schedules. Even one of my daughter's activities, they put the schedule out on iCloud, which I thought was very innovative. So if there's a change in her schedule, it automatically updates my calendar.
Oh, that's nice.
I do like the convenience of that, I have to say. Having everybody's schedules on my one iPhone calendar, which basically comes from, talks with my Google Calendar.
So in your area there, if you were to think about like who the ideal clients are for you, and if people want to contact you for organizing help, do you have kind of a area of expertise or certain kind of organizing that you like doing the most, or that you feel like you're the best at?
Well, I do a lot of paper organizing just because I think that's the most common thing that overwhelms people. And I always say that I work with professional women who are trying to create balance between their home and their work lives.
Okay.
So.
Well, what's okay? So you have the one book out now. I know you're promoting it a lot. And do you have other things coming out on the horizon? What's your next big project?
The summer is the time when I start thinking about my next big project. But I would have to say that I'm going to delve into the world of teleseminars.
Okay.
So that way I can reach a broader audience. And when I do get my teleseminar up, it'll be on my website. And
so when you say teleseminars, are you talking to an end user, like someone who's disorganized that needs help like that, like kind of like a group class, or is it the audience different? Okay.
No, it would definitely be for people who need organizing help but are willing to take a class online. We might do it via Skype, where there'll be some visuals, or it might just be an audio teleclass. Okay. Like I said, that way I can reach people across the country. I don't have to be physically in their office or in their living room.
Take advantage of the technology. So, Debbie, what's the best way that people can get a hold of you?
Well, through my website, it's www.spacetospare.com. I have all my social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and then my contact information is right on the website. There's a contact form.
Great. Well, we encourage people to give her a call, spacetospare.com. And Debbie, again, thank you for joining us today. We hope to have you back again, because I think we barely, scratched the surface of what you can help us with, and I think there's a lot more to cover. So we'll do it again.
All right. Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Debbie.